What up, cartoon fanatics? It's RJ, and welcome to another review about Rick and Morty because it finally happened! Out of all the promos of the third season, the one that people were most excited to see was Pickle Rick, and we finally got to see Pickle Rick! And man, we expected the pickle, we expected the brutality, but I think there were some parts of this, at least at the end, that actually surprised me. So let's get into it. Okay, so we'll start by, obviously, Rick turns himself into a pickle. At the very beginning of the episode, he's already Pickle Rick and doing the thing that he did with Morty in the promo, like, I'm Pickle Rick, just be impressed, I'm a pickle, no one's done this before. And Morty's not happy. It turns out the whole family is required to go to counseling as prompted by the school, not because of the divorce, but because Summer and Morty got in trouble for some really strange things. I'm not going to say it here because I don't want to ruin the jokes, but it's pretty funny what they got in trouble for, and now they're like, this family needs counseling. So, basically, Rick turned himself into a pickle to get out of that. Of course, he doesn't want them to know, so he's like, oh, I just turned myself into a pickle because I could, and now I can't go to counseling. I'm sorry, guys. Beth falls for it. Summer and Morty are like, yeah, sure. They know Rick's antics well enough to know that he's just making stuff up, or, you know, he could actually be legitimate. It's hard to tell with Rick, so they both kind of play the doubting side, and Beth is like, oh yeah, that's fine. So the rest of them go to counseling, and Rick ends up down in the sewers through a series of unfortunate events, I guess is what I'd call it. But he ends up down in the sewers, and it gets pretty nasty from down there, because now he's like, I gotta get back up, because Beth has the serum. That's the other thing. Beth accidentally took the serum that would turn Rick back into a human, so now he's like, I gotta get Beth and get that serum, or else I'm gonna be a pickle until I die. Which apparently pickle lifespans aren't that long. Good to know. Well, I guess that makes sense, because pickles are just pickled cucumbers. Why not Cucumber Rick? I guess, it doesn't have the same ring to it. Cucumber Rick doesn't sound as good as Pickle Rick, so I guess that part makes sense. So he's got to get out of the sewers, and first he starts by, we kind of saw in the promo that little skeleton/muscle thing he builds for himself. Well, before that, he, breaks open a cockroach and starts going around with the cockroach. Which was kind of gross and kind of funny at the same time. I'd say most of the Pickle Rick moments in the sewer were a mix of gross and funny. It was grotesque. I'm not going to put much of it on here, but he slaughters a whole bunch of rats just to get out of the sewers. And it's not pretty. Again, I'm not going to put any pictures up here because it's really something you got to witness, and screenshots just don't do the scene justice. But man, it's brutal. That they weren't kidding when they said that Pickle Rick taking on a whole bunch of rats was going to be ugly. In fact, I watched the behind the scenes before I watched this episode last night, and it was very interesting because their original designs for the rats were all cute and cuddly, and then they're like, no, we can't do that. That's too mean, because then he'll be mass murdering, having genocide on these cute, adorable, ratatouille-looking rats. So they made the rats look completely evil and absolutely disgusting. So then you didn't feel nearly as bad when Rick tore them apart. But I will say the rats screaming during that, but I don't know, it was kind of eerie. I guess it could be scary too for some people. It wasn't that scary for me. Then again, my fear meter has kind of been wrecked ever since I watched NBC Hannibal. Nothing really phases me that badly anymore. Man, I missed that show. But anyway, Rick gets out through the sewers, and then there's a whole nother storyline of Rick getting back. Because he doesn't end up, back in the sewer, back in the house where he's supposed to be. He, ends up in the middle of this government complex or something. It's for a whole nother country. And he got into this super secret base that is that country's government secret base where they're, using the people's money for the things that they aren't supposed to be using them for. And he just goes on a mass murder spree there, man. Pickle Rick almost seems more brutal than actual Rick. But, granted, maybe it's just because there was a lot more blood this time. I'm sure if it was aliens, it wouldn't feel nearly as gruesome. So Either way, it's just kind of very funny and kind of amazing to see all the creative ways they came up with Pickle Rick to be like this super smart, still being super smart and taking out this whole government, which is absolutely crazy to watch. You don't believe most of it. And at the same time, they're like, how are we being outsmarted by a pickle? It's like, you're just thinking of him as the pickle. You gotta think of him as Rick. You gotta think of him as Rick. So, while all of that's going on, the other three are in counseling. And it's supposed to be about Summer and Morty and the things they got in trouble in school for. But then it turns out to be like this serious conversation about Beth and her feelings and emotions towards Rick. And the counselor, man, she doesn't seem fazed by any of this. She just keeps on going, and when she gets to she kind of gets to the bottom of Beth's problems, and it's very interesting. The conversation ends up being more about Beth and her relationship to Rick than actually about Summer and Morty. So the kids are just kind of sitting on the couch there like, why are we even here? We thought this was supposed to be about us. And meanwhile, Beth's getting like this intense therapy session. And, okay, so going back to Pickle Rick, he does get out of the government base. He assists the help of this guy that the base had kidnapped, and I'm pretty sure Rick inadvertently started some kind of revolution there, because in the end, he and the other guy who was seeking vengeance for his daughter, they just blow up the whole complex. That was very satisfying to see. I'm not gonna lie there. That was pretty fun to see. They just blow up the whole complex. The whole thing's gone now. And the guy, I'll put up a screenshot. It was like Jaguar or something very cool like that. He was a cool dude, and he almost sounded like he now felt indebted to Rick because Rick got him out of there. And with that in mind, considering what happened to Bird Person, never get over that. R.I.P. Bird Person. You are greatly missed. And sorry that you got like turned into a cyborg or whatever you would call that, cyborg bird. But we might actually have just witnessed a future potential ally for Rick. I don't know what Rick does with the people that he kind of helps out or the people that feel indebted to him, but I get a sense that if push came to shove and Rick felt like he needed a group of people or a team to kind of like take down numerous things at once, he would just round up everyone that was quote-unquote on his side and like send them off to do all these crazy tasks, or he'd just probably send them off to do the tasks for him and he'd just be sitting at home watching the multiverse TV or something like that. But this Jaguar guy, something tells me we might see him again. I hope we do. He was a cool character. I'm hoping we get to see more of him in future episodes. So Rick actually does make it to therapy at like the tail end, and man, this therapist, well, it's kind of interesting because the therapist, she doesn't seem fazed by the fact that Pickle Rick with the skeleton rat body is just sitting there on the couch. And it makes me wonder, is the therapist like a secret agent? Or is she just so unfazed by everything now? Has she seen like so much crap that she just looks at Pickle Rick and goes, yeah, okay, I'll believe this? Because at this point, a lot has happened to that town that the Smith family lives in, especially since Rick came back. A lot of crazy things have happened. We had the giant heads that happened. We had the whole intergalactic government come down and take them over for a while. So I'd say at this point, it's actually kind of curious to see what's happening to everyone else that lives in this town and lives on Earth and has had all these things happen to them because of Rick and Morty's adventures. And this therapist seems like she might have been having to help a lot of those families because she just looks at the pickle and she's like, yep, I'll believe it. I've heard much crazier at this point. So there's actually some sort of slight conflict and resolution between Beth and Rick, and they drive home and they're happy and they're chatting and they seem to be having like a legitimate father-daughter bonding time, which is very interesting. I did not expect the episode to play out that way. Summer just kind of sitting in the back there. It's almost like this growing bond between Rick and Beth is shutting out Summer and Morty. That's interesting. I know that the team mentioned there was going to be a lot more arcs in this season, so I'm very curious to see if this is the beginning of an arc, along with sort of what we saw in the last episode with Jerry and his conflicts. it'd be really cool to kind of see all of that tie in together. I'm excited to see where some of this stuff goes, because it feels like they're setting us up for a lot of different things, and we're going to get some huge payoff, like either mid-season or near the season finale again. I'm excited for that. But yeah, Pickle Rick is awesome. And we got a lot of merchandise out of it, so hey, good for us. So if you liked this video, go ahead and put a thumbs up and press that like button. And don't forget to comment and subscribe. And I hope you come in next week to hear another installment of Cartoon Corner covering Rick and Morty. It's so good to have something to talk about every week, and Rick and Morty is definitely worth talking about. So I hope to see all of you guys then.